Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this Thursday for CareerCircle's first live 2020 or live event of 2024. Today, we are going to be talking about industry best practices for writing an effective resume. We're going to talk through a lot of different best practices as far as how to format your resume, what kind of information you'd like to put on there, how to quantify it, and then on top of that, best practices as far as leveraging multiple resumes on your job search in the event that you're chasing multiple disciplines. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Ethan Parker. I'm the digital recruiting manager here at CareerCircle. I am basically working to facilitate all recruitment efforts across our organization, both for the members and for the employers. So essentially, my main job is to try to do my best to advocate for each of you and make sure that you're all getting adequate representation in the marketplace. Today, I am joined by Lena and Miley, two of our career coaching advisors, or CCAs for short. Miley, would you like to give us a little bit of insight as to your role and how you support our members?
Yes. So thank you, Ethan. As a career coaching advisor, we provide one-on-one personalized coaching services to our members, from advising on networking, job search assistance, resume tips, and interview prep if necessary.
Perfect. And so, first and foremost, remember if you are not currently a CareerCircle member, you can create a free account through our website. This will give you access to even more career sources, things like interview preparation modules, the resume builder tool, and much more. We also have a live job board with several of our employment partners posting there every day. On average, we have 10 to 15,000 jobs live per day. So definitely check that out and go ahead and set up your account if you have not already. Kind of jumping into content here and talking a little bit more about the resume building process itself. Miley, can you tell us a little bit more about what the best way to organize and format your resume would be?
Yeah, so we actually recommend a traditional chronological resume, as it translates better on the ATS, also the applicant tracking system. That is the best way for employers to read through the resume. We also recommend submitting it via a PDF instead of a Word document.
Yeah, there's a couple key things to note there. Namely, the PDF itself versus DocX format. We do get that question a lot. What happens a lot of the time is applicant tracking systems, if they are not in a file format that it can understand, it can discount your resume or disqualify your resume even before it lands on a human's desk for evaluation. So you want to make sure that you are uploading it as a PDF. A lot of you are probably already familiar, but it's in Microsoft Word. It's as simple as clicking Save As and then changing your file type to PDF. Definitely make sure you do that. And then regarding the chronological resume piece, we've found, at least in our engagement with employers, that a lot of time we have candidates who are leveraging functional resumes, which is still great, showcases the skills that you've acquired over your professional career. But moreover, what happens is when you list a functional resume as opposed to the chronological one, is employers can kind of see it as a red flag or see like, oh, maybe this person has something to hide, maybe a long-term career gap, anything like that. Lena, anything else to add to that?
Yes. So the chronological way is also uploads better to the applicant tracking systems, also known as ATS systems. And it just reads the resume better. It also will upload your resume to a more accurate setting versus having those very columnized resumes. Those are better to bring to interviews or have on your LinkedIn, but we always recommend the chronological resumes to upload.
Absolutely. I did see a quick note from Kristen. We are going to try to take questions in the moment, but we are leaving some time there at the very end to make sure that we're doing back and forth with you all. So please have patience with us. If your question does not get answered within the content itself, we'll make sure that we make some space here at the end to answer any questions that you all may have. But yeah, absolutely great pointers, one and all, about the actual resume building process. The formatting is much more important than most folks think about. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But Lena, we have a lot of folks who are kind of career switching or maybe taking their first steps into a new career and maybe don't understand like how their prior skill set would translate to a new position. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about how you could highlight those transferable skills on your resume?
Yeah, so a lot of our calls are individuals transitioning from one industry into the next and mostly into tech. However, like we said, you go in, you're like, I don't have any experience. How do I showcase that I can do the work? By showcasing that is adding measurable achievements to your resume. So, were you able to increase something by a certain percentage, decrease something by a certain percentage? That's the best way to do it. Also, the measurable achievements will also showcase that I'm able to produce. A lot of industries want to see, are you able to produce? What can you showcase? For example, 90% of our calls are teachers leaving education going into tech. So I tell them, how are you able to showcase the data you use? You can say, I was able to decrease behavioral issues by a certain percentage, increase test scores by a certain percentage. That way you're able to showcase are able to showcase you can produce.
Yeah, absolutely. And then showcasing production is really the thing that resonates most with employers. In a lot of circumstances, especially when you're targeting entry level roles or kind of stepping into a new career path, what employers are really looking for is how you can highlight the demonstrable impact that you made to them. We'll talk about that a little bit more in some depth here in a second. But really, the biggest thing that you want to focus on is that you can deliver in the roles that you have had previously. And moreover, that you want to highlight those soft skills because those are kind of universally translatable. Things like conflict resolution, ability to communicate with others. Those soft skills they apply in every aspect of not just work but life. So in the event that you have had a career break or any other kind of position where you were doing a lot of conflict de-escalation or practicing a lot of soft skill work with whether it be somebody close to you or folks externally of your day-to-day life, it always merits highlighting within your skill summary on the resume itself. I am seeing a few questions specifically about career gaps in your work history. We will talk about that actually as our next topic here. Specifically, what you want to do when you are actually going through your resume and listing your experience chronologically is you list kind of your the place that you worked at, the job title, and then the year duration of your assignment there or your employment there. The same thing applies to a career break. You want to list it as a long-term career break, and in that you want to highlight any core upskilling that you obtained in that medium. You want to highlight any volunteer work that you did, any passion projects that you were working on, and even things as simple as taking a career break to raise children and be a homemaker. All of those skills are very universally translatable to. Give me just 1 second. Let me deal with that. So sorry about that. Seems like somebody is having a hard time getting into their car. But we will talk a little bit more about the actual listing of your skills. So first and foremost, list the professional upskilling that you did in the context of your career break. So any upskilling, curriculum details of the upskilling itself, or any projects that were part of that upskilling, kind of capstone projects or parts that you did to build your portfolio. After that, you want to talk through any volunteer projects that you did or any kind of community organizing work that you may have participated in. A lot of folks have gained some exposure to professional skill sets just by virtue of being involved with their HOAs. You might be helping to balance inventory, supplies, things like that for your community holistically. So you want to take time to really think through some of the things that you've done in the context of your career break and how that might apply to your professional development. Moreover, talking specifically on the moms returning to work, I know we were touching on that just a second ago. Being a homemaker, it's very similar in nature. You take a lot of time to make sure that you are budgeting effectively, making sure that you are, engaging with your children and making sure that they are becoming not necessarily productive members of society, but keeping them on the right path through your life. Those soft skills are very universally translatable. You'll find a lot of conflict resolution in those events. So make sure that you list those as part of it, because especially in today's modern workforce, we're finding more and more employers are recognizing that being a stay-at-home mom is just hard. It's just as much a job as anything else. So the skills that you learn and earn during that process are just as valuable as anything that you would in a professional context. Seeing a quick question from Amanda asking about going into cybersecurity and having some prior transferable skills. It's still very relevant and you want to put it into a resume. Moreover, what you want to do, because you'll kind of have your skills summary with sort of key technical competencies. Moreover, what you'll want to do is highlight how you kept those skills sharp over a long period of time. So, and any new technologies that you were interested in or research while you were actively working with the actual the development of your career. And then moreover, making sure that you highlight how you are engaging with new technologies day in, day out, even today. Moving on, we will go ahead and talk a little bit more in depth about the resume process itself. Miley, could you tell us a little bit more about if candidates should use the same resume for all the job applications?
Yeah, so we actually recommend a primary general resume. This is the kind of resume that the CCAs work with you during our one-on-one calls. So a general resume focus on the given discipline, and then in the event that you are passionate about any other disciplines, we suggest you take the time to reformat the resume and align it to the job description.
Absolutely. That latter part is the most important piece. There's a lot of jobs out there that you find where you might say, this is a knockout. This is exactly what I want. This is everything that I'm looking for. And we kind of call it a highlighter test internally here at CareerCircle. You want to take the time to really examine the job description in depth and detail, and really take some time to highlight those qualifications on your resume specifically. The most important piece when you are actively job searching is one, it's a numbers game. Obviously, to some extent, you will apply to a lot of jobs, but two, in the event that you are finding jobs that you are overly qualified for, interested in, things like that, you're taking the time to slow down and make sure that you're highlighting those qualifications. Lena, anything else to add to that?
Yes. So you really just want to showcase it's kind of hard to say because you want to help answer those questions that the employers might have to ask. So even if you have some knowledge of different softwares, programs, technology, add that in your resume. Show that, okay, I'm able to do it. If you have portfolios, anything like that, list the portfolios on top of your resume as well. So that way employers, recruiters can check out your work experience and see, oh, they don't have the professional skill set, but they have some of the skills that we need.
Exactly. And I saw a relevant question from Bala Devi. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. But talking about getting a certificate and then jobs asking for 3 to 5 years of relevant experience. You will run into that a lot in the job search. Unfortunately, there are employers that are kind of just listing things as entry level, but they require a little bit more experience. What we encourage people to do in those positions or in that context in your job search is really take the time to, again, review the job description in detail and ensure that there are as many keywords that are relevant. You might find a lot of times that you are able to get an interview and then kind of sell yourself in with soft skills just by making sure that you have the core competencies or those keywords listed on your resume. The big thing about actually getting into the process and making sure that your resume is getting reviewed by a person versus just a machine is making sure that your formatting is legible, obviously, but moreover, making sure that those key skills are listed. That way a person can just say like, okay, maybe we'll give this person a shot. Maybe their soft skills are great. Maybe they'll be a great fit for the organization. A lot of employers are willing to kind of train on some of the more technical things. They're not necessarily expecting you to kind of run out the gate, so to speak, and have all of the core qualifications that you need. So they're expecting some level of training no matter what when you're getting hired. And I see another great question here from Lloyd that kind of goes in the same vein. As a beginner or qualified or certified in the field, what do you do when recruiters or hiring managers only seem to want to hire experienced people? It's a great question. A lot of times what you'll want to lean on in that interview context specifically is your ability to fit into an organization or your ability to relate to others. You really want to showcase your ability to talk directly to one another and a willingness to learn more than anything else. That willingness to learn goes a long way, and you really want to make sure that you are showcasing that within the interviewing context.
Also, I like to add in when it is coming to the interviews, everyone is teachable. So also in your interviews, always make sure you're showcasing your personality because a lot of companies nowadays, they want personality within their company. So if you're able to showcase your personality, like I am willing to learn, I am willing to take on these tasks, I am willing to ask the necessary questions to get me to the next step in this position, go for it. That's a tip I do like to always add in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Miley, anything else to add? Perfect. So I saw a couple questions go by previously about how maybe you didn't have a core ability to qualify or quantify your experience. Maybe you didn't have access to percentages or how you might have impacted an organization directly. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth right now. So as far as quantifying your work experience to show the impact that you made, you'll want to kind of leverage a format, and this is actually available on the CareerCircle profile itself. when you're inputting your experience, it'll kind of tell you what that format should look like. And the first thing is the task. So what are or were you responsible for completing? The tools. So what tools, processes, software, techniques, or skills did you use to actually complete the task? And then the end result. So if you have percentages, this is where you can really highlight that end impact to employers. But in the event that you don't have percentages, we'll kind of talk through how you would do that. So just as an example, as a bullet, you could say you created and managed website pages for wholesale customers to bring them to market and promote new sales opportunities. And then as a result of that, you increased engagement by 60%. One way that you could say that in the event that you don't have access to the final percentages that you did is making sure that you highlight the end impact of the work that you did, regardless of the actual percentage growth. So in that same exact example, you would say you created and managed website pages for wholesale customers to market and promote new sales opportunities. And then you increased overall engagement, leading to greater sales for the company, and then leading to whatever goals you may have had. So as a result, we hit our end year goal or our quarterly goal for overall production. You don't necessarily have to quantify it in hard and fast numbers. If you can showcase the actual impact that you made while you were working at that organization, that it's very similar in nature to overall percentage information. Not just kind of going through the chat here, making sure that we're getting to things that are a little more pertinent. But while I'm reviewing that, Miley, can you tell us a little bit more? I'm sorry, Lena, could you tell us a little bit more about some of the 5 resume mistakes that you should avoid while you're creating your resume?
Yes. So everyone wants to know, how can I stand out amongst other candidates? But sharing overly personal information, for example, like your birthdays, hobbies, interests, street addresses, you always still want to keep your city and state so employers know you are located within the US. You don't want to put any quotes or testimonials. I know everyone wants to show their beautiful faces. However, headshots or other photos, QR codes, all that will really confuse the applicant tracking system. So you want to make sure that's left off off your resume. Also, for education, if you have obtained any higher education, so for example, associate's, master's degree, PhD, it's not necessary to keep your high school diploma on there, so you can always take that off. Additionally, the year of the graduation is not necessarily and should be left off to avoid any unconscious bias.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that last piece is very key. You don't necessarily need to highlight when you completed the curriculum. The most important thing is that you did complete the curriculum. Regarding the images and the actual formatting for the applicant tracking systems themselves, we've talked about that a lot during the context of this. ATS systems are very finicky. If there is a chance that it can't interpret the data, translate it to an end recruiter, it will just go ahead and just spit it straight back out. You won't even get to where a live person is actually reviewing your experience. So as a result of that, you want to make sure that those complex images, headshots, anything like that, we talked about that obviously, but moreover, the QR codes themselves specifically, just for our candidates with portfolios that have leveraged QR codes to give people access to that, you really want to avoid those because 99% of the time an ATS will go ahead and kick that back. Moreover, for the actual content and the education piece itself, you'll want to make sure that you are highlighting in the event that you are a new professional and kind of talking through your experience as your career switching. You will want to make sure that you're highlighting some of the core competencies that you obtained in the curriculum. So you can do that in a number of ways. If you had a career break and you were upskilling, you can highlight it there. If you want to just put it in line directly under the curriculum itself. So let's say you had some kind of certification, you want to take the time to really highlight the core projects and competencies that you learned and reviewed as a part of your curriculum. I saw a great question previously. Well, not a question, but a statement. The grad dates are unavoidable on LinkedIn. You will run into some element of that. When you're applying to positions on a wide variety of websites, you really will have to kind of bend and flex as it pertains to the actual experience that you are applying through, whether it be LinkedIn, Indeed, or even CareerCircle. What in those instances, make sure that you are fully filling out all of the relevant fields, all of the required fields, because again, in the event that you don't, it will go ahead and just kick your resume straight back.
I also like to add in, take if you are not currently in a school, go ahead and remove your GPAs as well as courses that you took, because for example, if you graduated back in the 90s, those courses aren't too relevant. So it's having those on, take it off. Same with your GPA. The GPA doesn't make or break you. It's not going to make an employer say, oh, they had a 4.0, I'm going to hire them. So having the GPA on your resume isn't necessary either. Same with coursework, unless you are currently in a university and you are trying to apply for apprenticeships or internships.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then thinking through that as well, I saw a couple good questions about how to tackle it in the event that you do have any kind of images or anything like that on your resume. You can still keep that resume, especially if you're in a creative discipline. It really gives you a chance to kind of stretch your legs and show what you can do just, before you even get to an interview context with an employer. What you'll want to do really is save those specifically for any kind of direct outreach that you're doing for networking practices. So in the event that you find a job that you are interested in, or a company has an actual, like, we're always accepting applications page, anything like that, those are your instances where you want to use the more complex resumes specifically. They are much less likely, they're much more likely to have an in-person that's actually actively monitoring that box versus, basically just going into something where there's hundreds of resumes sitting. Hugo, great catch. In the event that you do run into a job application that specifically recommends that, again, this is where you'll want to use some best judgment as well on if it specifically asks for the GPA or whatever your most up-to-date curriculum like completed was. Make sure that you highlight that on your application. Additionally, if you are, to Lena's latter point, if you are a new student and you're kind of looking to find an employer and you're leveraging really the bulk of your college experience specifically for the actual professional development, you will want to go ahead and list out some of the key things that made you stand out as a student. So GPA, high GPA, always recommend showing that. And then for the curriculum details, we've had folks kind of list out some of the classes that they took and some of the core projects that they took as each of those. That is specifically for new students most of the time. But moreover, you want to make sure that you are paying attention to the job application form itself and making sure that you're including all of the relevant information for that. So we've touched a lot on how to highlight some of the core skills and competencies that you may have gained, how to bring those to translatable skills and really showcase to employers like these are super relevant. In that same vein, we get a lot of folks who are freelancers or kind of self-employed, making sure that they are doing side work to either make ends meet or really get more exposure to whatever discipline that they may be focusing on. Miley, how would you recommend showcasing freelancing or self-employed experience?
Yeah, I love this question because it does get asked often. And I think we live in a world now where everyone has some kind of side gig or has freelanced. We do recommend to give yourself a title. So if the scope of work of what you did fell under like marketing assistant or operations manager, that is the title that you want to use on your resume. And then you want to either use the company that you were working for or use freelancing. Aside from that, you want to show the experience holistically, meaning if you did freelance work intermediately, show it as a continuous employment section. So if you started freelancing January 2024 and let's say you took a break 1 month and then still got to it and still, let's say you're still freelancing, you would just start January 2024 to present. If you stopped in December or September, then you would put September 2024.
Yep. And this actually applies directly to a question that Mel asked as well. If you had 3 to 5 years in different organizations and you were filling different roles in that capacity while you were with that organization, you want to list it the same way. So list the organization as your main title, and then you can kind of do subtitles for each title that you held while you were working in that organization and kind of highlight some of the key things that were required or expected of you, or the end results that you had that you had achieved to kind of segue into, oh, okay, this person worked their way up in an organization. They were there for a while. Same kind of thing. It's very similar in nature. The freelancing thing specifically, for the job titles, we get that question a lot. You'll want to make the job title something that is most relevant to what you are targeting or the work that you're doing. A lot of employers, when they see owner or CEO or things like that, they might see that, like, again, because the person at the end of the day that's reviewing the resume might see that and just automatically disqualify you because they're like, oh, this person's overqualified for XYZ job. When in reality, you were doing more more relevant work that was very like specific to that specific or to that career path in general. So really take the time to make sure that you are giving yourself a title that most aligns with the work that you were doing, i.e. if you're doing projects on Fiverr for web design, graphic design, things like that, you would maybe give yourself the title of web designer or front-end web engineer, something along those lines. Got a great question from Kristen about freelancing in a broad area. If you're freelancing across a wide variety of disciplines and projects, you'll kind of want to list your experience in the same vein, right? So rather than listing them holistically, rather than listing them as segmented per thing or like a different bullet or core like job description for each one, you'll want to list like freelancing or self-employed to XYZ time. So starting this date, ending this date, or present. And then you'll list each of the core job titles or roles that you fulfilled during that timeline. Again, in that same vein, you'll want to highlight the key skills that you leveraged in your freelancing career to make you pop out and stand out a little bit more as qualified for XYZ position that you may be applying to. Lena, anything else to add as far as the freelancing or self-employed work goes?
Just showcase the measurable achievements while you are freelancing. And even if you have to guesstimate those numbers, that's totally fine.
Right.
A lot of employees know they don't even offer proper KPIs sometimes. So just having to guesstimate, don't go overboard with it, saying that you started from 0 and reached to 100. Just kind of give yourself some wiggle room. But there is a question that I wanted to answer really quickly about having the taking titles off your resume. You really want to keep your titles and roles on your resume to show what you actually did. Because if I was an employer and I look at your resume and you're just listing your responsibilities, I want to know what exactly was your title for that responsibility to attach it to. If you're going more for that skills based resume, that's when the titles really don't matter much because you're just showcasing the skills, but always still list your titles and roles on your resume as well.
Absolutely. We talked through career breaks a little bit previously, Tanya, but in the event that you have a long-term career break, you want to make sure that you do highlight that on your resume. For acquisitions, Nicole, great question. You'll still list it as one with different titles. Just list in the actual career, the company information itself, XYZ company acquired by XYZ company, right? So that's kind of your key litmus there. And then still highlight the total duration of the time that you worked there. So we'll circle back to some of these questions here in a little bit, but we will talk a little bit more now about upskilling and certifications and how you should showcase those curriculum details or projects. We did talk through this briefly and kind of highlighted how you want to approach it similar to a job, right? You'll want to list out bullets and core competencies that you obtain from that education. However, really the way that you should tackle this specifically is thinking about how it translates directly to whatever career that you're targeting. We all know a lot of times in whatever curriculum you may be pursuing, not everything is going to be 100% hyper relevant for the actual skill set that you're targeting or your chosen discipline. Take the time to really think on the curriculum specifically and highlight the things that you think will be most relevant. The best way of doing this, again, is kind of running that highlighter test. So getting a great understanding of what the jobs that you're looking for requires, maybe getting a few job titles and kind of like searching for positions that have those titles, getting a sense for those specifically. And then making sure that you are highlighting those key competencies that are listed on the job descriptions, because again, that's your most surefire way of at least getting in front of a recruiter. Saw a question about bullet limits. Actually, great question. For work experience itself, I largely recommend that you keep it to 3 to 6 bullets. For education, I would go no longer than 3 bullets because, again, you want to make sure that you're keeping your resume focused and intentional on whatever discipline that you're targeting. We do also offer on CareerCircle's website general and specialized resume templates that kind of show how to articulate some of the key skills and projects obtained from a wide variety of the relevant certifications in today's marketplace. So definitely take the time to check out those resume templates on our platform. And then from there, you can also take some time to essentially translate that directly to your work experience or to your CareerCircle profile, and it can generate a resume off the back of that as well for you. Okay.
Oh, I would like to address a question that I see. Should a resume just be one page? If one page is good. However, if you have to go into 2 pages, that is totally fine. Anything over 2 pages is something you don't want because that is overkill. So if you're able to just keep it under 2 pages, that's the best practice. But always make sure you're able to fill out a full 2 pages. You don't just want one page and then just a line on the second page. So make sure you're able to just fill out the full 2 pages. Same if you have to go further into 3 and 4 pages as well.
Yes, exactly. The biggest thing, again, we've talked about this a ton, is applicant tracking systems. In the event that you have a page that's like half empty, there's a chance that the ATS will just go ahead and spit your resume right back out. There's a good chance that will happen. So make sure that you're taking the time to fully fill out each resume itself. I did see a question specifically about multiple resume strategy. Um, I myself, as a recruiter, I actually have a lot of prior experience in tech support as well. So I have an experience with, or a resume with all of my recruiting experience and a resume with all of my technical support and IT support experience. I recommend that people have at least one resume for whatever discipline they are looking for at the time. So in the event that you are looking for, call it new IT support jobs, you want to highlight all the core things that you've learned from your curriculums, but also the transferable skills where you might have been working directly with computers, taking the time to troubleshoot them, supporting end users. A lot of retail experience is actually very universally applicable to that because you're taking the time to work directly with a customer and understand their needs. Moreover, in the event that you are also simultaneously targeting any kind of customer service related positions or sales related positions, you want to make sure you have a resume that is specifically targeted around that. Really, really, really make sure that you are taking the time again to kind of customize your resumes to your job search specifically. That way, you're getting the most out of the resumes that you have already developed. Ermac, yes, we actually do have several sample template resumes. And then again, when you go through the resume builder on our platform, it will go ahead and generate a resume that is fully ATS compliant. You'll also get some time to really review it in comparison to your resume and maybe make some changes on either way if you prefer the formatting one way or another. Saw a question from Rich as well. Sorry, I'll hand it back over in a second. What if your resume is 3 pages? Again, totally fine for it to be 3 pages. You just want to make sure that you have that third page all the way filled out. You don't want to have anything that is like half a page of emptiness or something that's not really showcasing your skills. You want to make sure that you are putting relevant experience all the way to the end of that third page. So in the event that you don't have any more relevant experience, I'd recommend going back, taking a look at some things that maybe were a little bit less relevant to get you onto those 2 pages flat.
Someone asked how much it cost. I do want to let you guys know the service, the career coaching service, where we do personalized advice for networking and for resume building tips, that is free. So as long as you have a CareerCircle profile, you can sign up to have a session with one of the coaches.
And another question I wanted to address is from Sean. How many skills should you list on your resume? When it comes to skills, with today's work culture, they aren't too interested in soft skills. For example, I used to always put effective communication, but I never talked to my coworkers. I used to put time management, but I was late every day. So I had to take those off. In the skills section, you really want to highlight programs and softwares. What programs and softwares do you know how to use? That's mainly what you want to use. You don't want to overkill it though. So anything more than a small little paragraph of skills of the software skills you know how to use is perfectly fine. But if you're gonna list all the skills, make sure it's not like a full page of it, just a small section of it to where it doesn't overkill your resume.
I do want to piggyback on that. You want to make sure that you have your skills section in a place where the recruiters or the hiring manager is going to see as soon as possible. You have to kind of think about the recruiter. They are maybe looking at resumes, 200 resumes. They're maybe taking 5 to 6 seconds per resume. So you want to give all that information up front. Sometimes some recruiters are told, hey, we need someone with waterfall, agile experience or with Asana experience. So we recommend having that right underneath like a professional summary section. That's going to be the best place for them to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, recruiters, they're just like the rest of us, right? They read up to down, left to right. So when you're putting together your resume and formatting it, really take the time to make sure that you are thinking like, okay, if this actually gets to a person's desk, are they going to see my qualifications for the role like immediately? Saw another question about listing a title other than your official title on your resume. There's a couple different ways that you could tackle this. Largely, we do recommend that you go forward with your official title, but in the event that you are targeting a kind of career switching and you've highlighted that prior experience that makes you more of a fit for program coordinator roles in your example, I would recommend going ahead and listing your title as program coordinator and just informing your references that you did list it as that, so they can speak a little bit more to your program coordinating abilities when you're targeting new positions. Another good question from Dharmeek. Someone just told me to reach out to recruiters at a company that has a job opening instead of just applying. Is it something that you would recommend? There are ups and downs. A lot of the times, there are a lot of candidates that are a lot of recruiters that are just getting flooded with resumes either way. In the event that you find a position that aligns really well with what you're targeting, I would recommend going ahead and just shooting the application through. And then you can send a follow-up email just saying, hi, saw this position, I really like the role itself, was hoping to learn a little bit more about it. Maybe not necessarily saying I would like to move forward with this position, but expressing your interest in learning more about it directly from a recruiter. That way, it doesn't come across quite so transactional, like I'm looking to get something out of you, and you stand out a little bit more in the recruiter's mind from a follow-up perspective. Great question, Travis. So what if we learned software tech or programming language really well and we know how to use it, but we don't have professional experience with it? Your example of having projects that will showcase the projects built with whatever programming language you chose to build out things with, excuse me. You want to include that in a portfolio link on your resume generally. So if you have a GitHub, something like that, include that in your actual header. So where you have your first, last name, your city and state, your contact information, go ahead and include your portfolio or your GitHub in that section as well. Links, as long as it's simple text, a lot of the time will not get dinged automatically by an ATS. So if you are including a portfolio, anything like that, make sure you are including a simple text link. There's a lot of URL shorteners as well. So if you find that your resume isn't aesthetically appealing after you include like a long URL to your portfolio, go ahead and use a URL shortener to make it look a little bit cleaner on the top end.
A question that I would like to address is from Yasmin. What if the relevant experience was a long time ago, 15 years ago? You don't want to list that job from 15 years ago. However, you can I always tell individuals, create a professional summary, just a 3 to 4 sentence paragraph highlighting your overall skill set that you bring to the table. So that way you can list the skills from that 15 years ago, but you don't have to say it was 15 years ago. They know it's a part of your skill set that you bring to the table. So that's a good way to showcase that without having it 15 years ago, listing the 15-year-old job.
Absolutely. Good question coming from Stephanie. What are the common programs that employers look for when reviewing your resume? There is a lot of variance to this. It really depends on which skill set you are targeting or what discipline you're in. As far as widely accepted or known certifications go, there are obviously the Google Career Certificates that are gaining more and more traction every day within the tech sector for entry-level candidates. Salesforce certifications, obviously, if you're applying for anything requiring Salesforce experience, stands out, gives you an edge over the competition a lot of the time. And then for IT or technical support experience, anything with the various levels of CompTIA or Google support certificates would be a great fit for you.
This is from Trip. How far back should we list jobs? You don't want to list anything over 10 years ago, unless you've been at that company for the last 10 years and you've grown within the company. So for example, some individuals been at their company since 2005, but they started out as customer service rep and now they're a director. So you can showcase that you started out as this point and then work your way up. That's okay, but you only want to list just that one job. You don't want to list the jobs before that. But anything over 10 years on your resume, you don't want anything over 10 years on your resume.
Great catch. So another question coming through from Michael. What if you had a life before you spent nearly 30 years with your current employer? I think this kind of goes hand in hand with your answer just now, Lena. If you've been in the workforce for 30 years with one organization. Just showcase the transitions that you've made with that employer throughout the years. Again, you'll want to make sure that you highlight any title changes that you did have and how those job titles differed in functionality long term for you. Gina, we did talk through this a little bit earlier as well. If you're with the same company for 20 plus years, make sure that you are listing the company, and then you'll want to list subtitles for each job title that you held while you were working with that organization. Great question coming from Travis. What's the best way to use your resume when networking? And is there a certain resume format that is best for networking in general? We did talk through this a little bit earlier with creative discipline specifically, but holistically for networking with either employers or recruiters on LinkedIn or any other job board, you'll want to make sure that you are using a resume that's, one, obviously showcases your skill set as effectively as it can, but two, that's where you have the more flexibility to showcase some of your creativeness, some of the things that might make you stand out as an employee versus just a candidate. That's where you can really take the time to include cover letters, notes, things like that to really showcase your interest in working with an organization. And again, when it comes to networking, you don't want to make it a transactional thing where it's like, hey, I saw you have this job, I want this job. You want to take the time to really say like, hey, I'd love to learn a little bit more about the organization. I'm very interested in the work that you all have been doing. And I saw that you've been working there for a long time. Is there any way that we could connect sometime and I could learn a little bit more about it? The transactional piece is what turns a lot of hiring managers off, because again, they're receiving hundreds of resumes and contacts per day. So the best way for you to make yourself stand out in that networking cadence is just approaching it from a lens of like, I just want to learn a little bit more. But for the resume specifically itself, any resume that you use with an ATS will be just as good for a networking perspective. But if you have like a creative resume with a little bit more je ne sais quoi to it, you can really take the time to showcase that. So QR codes, portfolio links, complex images, all that, you can send that to a person directly.
There was a question of if you took a break out of the 10 years. Just to clarify, that question is if you've been at the company for 10 years, but you kind of took like a 4-year break off and then went back to the company. Is that the question that you're asking? I can't see where the individual who asked that question at. But for example, if you were at a company for 10 years and then during those 4 years you did take a break, sometime if you want, you can list it, but you really don't have to. You could just show the longevity of how long you've been at the company to kind of get rid of the break. Another tip I do tell people is if you worked at, for example, let's say you started at in 2014. That's when you took your career break and then you started working at 2018. Go ahead and remove anything below 2018 off your resume so you don't have to showcase your career break. You can just start at 2018 on up. That's a good tip as well.
Did get some clarification from Nicole. So she's on a current career break, is returning to the workforce after having not worked for 4 years. In these instances where you are looking to return, 4 years is still long enough to where you want to showcase the career break itself. So highlight any upskilling or professional development that you may have undertaken while you were on your extended career break. Additionally, in the event that you are a caretaker or anything like that, you can feel free to showcase some of the core responsibilities that come with that. But additionally, for those specifically, you'll still want to showcase some of the professional work experience that you had prior to your career break. That way, again, employers know that there's XYZ extenuating circumstance that has prevented you from returning to the workforce for a longer period of time. Again, increases your likelihood that as a person that a person will read that and then resonate with it in some way and then reach out to you directly for an interview. Good question from Narada. What if you worked in IT for 10 years and then took a break for 14 years and are now making a comeback with upskilling? It's a great question. In that circumstance, you will want to showcase some of the prior experience that you had, whether it be via a professional summary or a skill summary. Showcase the technologies that you are familiar with, which you have gained the most competency with over time. And then when you are coming back to the with your career break and some of the upskilling that you've done most recently, make sure that you're highlighting that specifically as like bullet lines or work experience in the context of your career break.
Rich had a question about his resume being 3 pages full and doing paragraphs instead of bullet points. We recommend sticking to bullet points. They're easier to read. It breaks down the information a little bit better. They're also easier on the eyes. So you might want to go through those paragraphs and then just switch it over to some bullet point fragments. Something Ethan kind of went over the earlier in the call of how to write it out to show achievements.
This was a great question. What if we have working experience in another country and then a career break for bringing up kids and planning to get back into the career field? So you always want to answer the unknown questions that employers and recruiters may have. So if you did work in another country, still list your experience because it is still very relevant, especially if it's similar to the job that you are applying for. But list a career break. You could talk about how you came to the U.S., how you took some time off to raise your children, how you also volunteer within your community, as well as completed certifications as well. So you still want to always make sure to answer those unknown questions. So listing that is totally fine.
For Archie, is that, I hope I didn't say that wrong. We actually just stick to black. You can bold your titles, but just stick to black all over the resume.
Veronica, good question about showcasing skills learned from over 10 years ago. You'll want to list them within the context of your skills summary. So under your professional summary, under your header, that kind of showcases your contact information. You'll want to put them in bulleted format generally, but we have a couple templates that showcase this on the CareerCircle platform as well. But you want to put them in bulleted format. I usually recommend anywhere from 6 to 12 bullets, depending on your competency there. And you can choose to segment it into soft skills and technical skills as well. So if you would like to showcase technical skills learned from over 10 years ago, you can highlight those in the technical skills section with a summary of the technologies that you have leveraged throughout your career. There's no right or wrong answer for the technical versus soft skills question. You could do either or, as long as it's in a format that an applicant tracking system can understand.
And Sean, to your question, we did touch on this earlier. If you do not have to put that you were laid off, I always recommend putting career sabbatical. You could say you took time off, decided to further your education, upsell yourself by obtaining certifications as well, and things like that. But I wouldn't put I was laid off and decided to go back to school. Just put career sabbatical and then list that you completed your bachelor's degree, completed Google certs, and things like that.
Great question. And just again, circling back to some of the stuff that we were talking about at the top of the call, we do have a wide variety of resources available on the CareerCircle platform itself, including resume templates, access to one-on-one coaching sessions, and then various modules for interview preparation and ensuring that you have a good level of career readiness, including the job board itself, where you can apply to any amount of positions throughout the day. All you have to do is go to careercircle.com and then go ahead and create a profile. It just needs a first, last name, and an email address, and then you can choose to add information as you need. Saw a question about using a Word doc without it being templatized. Doesn't make it ATS-friendly. Largely, no. You want to make sure that you are uploading in a PDF format, not a docx format, because again, there's the possibility that it can misinterpret the data from the docx format itself. Um, Tomas, you had I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. In the resume, should we give precedence to design or practicality? I believe a good design would attract the attention of a recruiter, but a practical resume would be better for the ATS. What do you think? You hit the nail on the head. In the event that you are reaching out to a recruiter directly, go ahead and send that little more thoroughly designed resume. But if you are just going ahead and clicking apply on various websites, make sure that you have a practical resume.
And this is a question to Connor. Can you recommend a practice ATS program to test changes we are making to our resume? This site I'm going to recommend has no affiliation with CareerCircle. I found it on my own. It's called Goblin Tools. Goblin Tools is a great website to use to kind of upload your resume, and it'll tell you what percentage your resume is ATS system friendly, as well as give you some advice on tips to change it to make it a bit better. So you can do that. So check out Goblin Tools. Again, there's no affiliation with CareerCircle. I just found that site on my own.
Saw another question as well. If you're making a career switch into project management, completed relevant professional courses, and acquired the relevant certifications, how do you stand out to hiring managers in this new field? This also can circle back to another question where they were asking about the Google certifications versus the PMI certifications. For the Google Project Management certification, it actually qualifies you for credit hours. It satisfies the credit hour qualification for a CAPM, so you can go ahead and transition directly into that PMI training after you complete your Google PM cert. But for the project management piece itself, you'll want to highlight the projects that you completed in the certification, highlight those in bullet format directly in line with that. But as far as standing out, you'll want to highlight the transferable skills that you've acquired from other elements of your career. So in the event that you've worked with Trello, Jira, Asana, any level of project management tools previously, make sure you highlight those from a technical skills standpoint. Even in the event that you've leveraged them in your personal life, because there are tools like Notion that are becoming more prevalent in the PM space that people do leverage for household management and things like that. Make sure that you highlight those on your resume, because again, it's just another keyword that highlights a qualification and showcases that you've been playing around with standard accepted PM softwares. Additionally, in the event that you have any kind of portfolio of how you might have successfully end-to-end managed a project or a pseudo project in your own head, you can showcase that and really illustrate to an employer how you think as a project manager. I saw a question about including a certification on the resume if the certification is still in progress. Yes, you want to go ahead and add that. Again, it'll showcase your overall qualifications and showcase that you are actively pursuing additional information for your chosen discipline. The way that you would word that specifically is you can highlight the certification itself and then say expected XYZ date. That way they know your curriculum is still in progress and that you have a timeline for completion.
And the name of the site I had mentioned earlier for the ATS systems to help is called goblintools.com. Are resumes that are generated by resume builders ATS system compliant? It depends on the type of system you're using. For example, if you generate a resume off LinkedIn, LinkedIn will provide every single icon for the company logo on your resume. That is not ATS system compliant. So always look over the resume that you are using that for the system that you're using that generated the resume to understand it. Compare it to what you I always tell individuals, compare it to like a Google, go on Google, type in ATS system friendly resumes and look at the images, compare it to that to see if it is ATS system friendly. But it just depends on the site that you're using.
Right. And the latter part of that, Alfonso, for the resume builder on the CareerCircle platform, those are ATS compliant. They do download as a docx, so you'll have to save them as a PDF. But the actual formatting itself is fully ATS compliant. All right, we are approaching the end of our time here. Give a quick 5 minutes remaining. Any other questions that we can help to facilitate? No, no dumb questions, by the way. Like, feel free to just throw them at us.
Someone said kid question. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
And while you guys are elaborating, I would like to answer Carlene's question. Advice for 50 plus professionals seeking opportunities. I've been applying for jobs daily for months and not getting any callbacks. Make sure on your resume you can avoid any type of ageism. And it creates biasness within companies. Some companies just want individuals who are young, fresh out of college. So if you're able to remove any older jobs that's like from the early 2000s, the 90s, take that off your resume. Just focus on jobs that are most recent and most relevant to the position you're applying for.
And just recapping as well, for the preferred amount of bullet points, usually we recommend 3 to 6 for new positions. And then for your education, up to 3. I would not go beyond that. I saw a question from Trip about military experience as well. You can actually, in the event that you are a veteran, go ahead and highlight in the top section under your name, contact information, all that good stuff, that you are a veteran of whatever branch you served in. And then naturally, any roles that you fulfilled while you were serving the military, you can highlight that as core experience. Again, that's very universally translatable. And a lot of employers, to be honest, are looking specifically for veterans to bring on board, because there is a level of professionalism that comes with bringing a veteran to your team.
I was using a photo because I think don't put Alicia, please don't add any photos to your resume because it will not work very well with the applicant tracking systems. Any photos will get you automatically kicked back from applicant tracking systems. The way to help avoid ageism is to remove any jobs that will create it. So keep jobs that are most relevant. Anything over 10 years, you don't want on your resume.
Sometimes the photo too could create unconscious bias too. So something you don't want to include.
Good question from Kristen about bullet points on the resume versus on your LinkedIn profile. It depends on what you're leveraging it for. If you are leveraging your LinkedIn profile for the exact same purpose as your resume, then go ahead and just leave them exactly the same. A lot of the times, the formatting to be ATS compliant for resumes doesn't always lend itself well to networking on LinkedIn. So it's completely fine to have a different style on your LinkedIn in the event that you're trying to use it to network directly with others.
And Tomas, quick answer for you: no QR codes, no images, no QR codes, anything of that sort will automatically get you kicked back from the applicant tracking systems.
For Gregory, he said, do you have any resume tips for those of us who were partners in a business and now want to go into a Main Street project manager, project coordinator employee role? I would, so again, kind of going back to like what we talked about when we were listing freelancing. So you want to give yourself a title in the scope of work that you did. So if you did a lot of operations or you did do a lot of project management, you can stick to a project management title. You want to display that on your resume just like that. And then of course, put the bullet points pertaining to whatever you did while you were in that business.
All
And
right.
this
Go ahead,
Sonia,
man.
I can answer this quick question. All my relevant experience is more than 10 years ago. List your experience in your professional summary. Talk about those skills that you possess from 10 years ago in your professional summary. That way you're listing them and you're telling them you have the skills, but you're not showcasing it's from 10 years ago. That's the best way to do that.
Of course. All right, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope that you learned something new and can apply these to your current resume. We're actually going to be facilitating and hosting a lot more live events as the year goes on. We're planning on doing them on a monthly basis. So don't forget to create a member account. That way you can go ahead and check out our events page for the next event that's coming up. And then you can also have access to all of the career readiness tools that are available on the platform. We will share a recording of today's live event on all of our social pages tomorrow. So in the event that you missed anything or came in a little bit late, feel free to go ahead and check those out. Again, thank you all so much for connecting with us today. We appreciate all of your engagement and look forward to speaking with each of you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you guys. Have a great day.